A guten Erev Shabbos. Hope you're all having a great day. So, today, for 48 years since the terrible Yom Kippur War, the Supreme Court made 13,000 pages of meetings, secret meetings held by the government available. And in it, it gives us a remarkable window into the mind of Golda Meir, the prime minister then, and how she felt. It was Yom Kippur on October 6th, 48 years ago, exactly in 1973. When Yom Kippur, of course, most Jews were praying in Shul, and the Syrian and Egyptian army caught the Israelis by surprise and made a double attack on the Golan Heights and on the Sinai Peninsula. And the first days looked terrible. In fact, the meetings from October 7th, the next day, 6:10 a.m. with Golda Meir, say that she was told that the Syrians were advancing on the Golan Heights and that cities and little towns in the Golan Heights were being evacuated quickly, and the situation was dire. And she immediately asked that they contact Henry Kissinger, who was then the Foreign Secretary of State for America, and ask for rearmament. And she said something like this. She said, the international community will turn on us quickly. They don't care about us. They don't like Jews, especially not weak Jews. They will throw us to the dogs. Those are the words Golda Meir said. And she asked that they immediately get in touch with Henry Kissinger's office. What happened, of course, is that America sent a record. Richard Nixon, who was considered, so to speak, an anti-Semite, sent the greatest airlift of ammunition to Israel to rearmor it. Israel bombed the Golan Heights with Air Force, and they took a few days, but they finally pushed back the Syrians. As Golda Meir said in a meeting, she says, we need to give them severe blows because they have no compassion. They will go and go and go. The Sinai Peninsula was different. It took much more time for Israel to push back. The Egyptian army made it deep into the Sinai Peninsula that was under Israel's control. Not before Israel lost 2,500 soldiers and thousands more injured. This is in 73. Imagine the percentage of Israel. How many Israelis lived in Israel then? But yet, Golda Meir understood, with all weaknesses, and she later resigned and took responsibility, that we have to stand up and we have to fight for ourselves and rebuild because no one else will. And that's really been the history of the Jewish people. We've realized more than ever that only we could chart our own destiny, and that we, with the help of Hashem, of course, have not to rely on anyone but on ourselves. And it brings me back to Noach in this week's Torah portion. We read about Noach. In the beginning of the portion, God tells Noach, Bo el ha-teva, come to the teva. Later on, he tells him, Tzei min ha-teva, get out of the teva. The waters receded, the flood was over, and God says, Noach, it's time to get out of the teva, it's time to rebuild. And the rabbis say there was 3 Noachs. There was the Noach. In the first verse of the Torah, it says, Eila told Noach, these are the offspring of Noach. Noach was a righteous man. And then it says Noach again a third time. Why 3 times? And the rabbi said there was 3 different Noachs. There was Noach before the flood, when life was typical, when he had parents and grandparents and everything was perfect. He had a normal life like we have today. There was Noach during the flood, devastation, destruction. And there was Noach after the flood, when Noach had to go out and rebuild. But what do we know about Noach after he rebuilt? We know that he got drunk. He had a hard time. He dealt with post-trauma, depression, or whatever it might have been. Noach, we don't hear anything about Noach rebuilding, only that he planted a vineyard and he got drunk. The Gemara says a fascinating thing. Rabbi Eloi says that God had to tell Noach to go into the teva, but he also had to tell him, Tzei min ha-teva, go out. Says Rabbi Eloi, if it was me, you think I would wait for God to tell me? The moment I would have the opportunity, I would take an axe and I would break down the teva and I would go and rebuild the world. What's the message he was saying? What he was saying was that Noach, and that's why Noach is not the first Jew. Who's the first Jew? Abraham. Because Noach didn't understand what it takes to rebuild, what it takes. You can't wait for someone to tell you. You can't wait for someone to help you. Rabbi Lai says, I would have gone out with an axe and broken down and gone out. I wouldn't wait for God to tell me. I would take the initiative and be a pioneer, be a leader, be a trailblazer to rebuild our world. Who knows that better than the Jewish people? The Jewish people never claimed victimhood. We never asked for pity. All we asked was for the right and the strength for our own destiny, to stand up for ourselves, to protect ourselves. One of my favorite lines that Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, ex-Prime Minister, used to say was, he says, rather bad press than a good eulogy. We can't rely on others. We have to go tzeimin ateva. We have to go stand strong. Like Golda Meir recognized at that moment. It might have been late, but it wasn't too late. And we lost. We had painful losses. But we learned from those times for today. That when the world says, oh, we're going to protect you, we'll send forces, we'll send peacekeeping forces, give more, give away your land, let everyone live, let your enemies be on you, on the moment, on the cusp of your land. We know the story too well. We say, oh no, we're not relying on you. We will stand up for ourselves. Same in our table, we will go out there, fight for ourselves, protect ourselves, and make sure that we chart our destiny. And we are pioneers and trailblazers and rebuilding and continuing to build. Think about the miracle of Israel and how quickly we've rebuilt and have a flourishing nation that impacts the whole world and is a beacon of light to the whole world. I saw a story, my daughters, Mushki and now Necha, they're in New York. They go to a school called Beis Rivka. It's a school in Brooklyn, in Crown Heights, near my parents' home, where there are 2,000 girls in the school. And in fact, in every grade in high school where Mushki and Necha went, there are about 200 kids in each grade. 6 classes or 7 classes, a huge school. But back in the day, before I grew up, before I was born, there was no school in Crown Heights. There was no Beis Rivka, and the kids had to go learn in Borough Park in a school, Beis Yaakov. So there's stories about this lovely Chabad woman who was a young girl, and her parents heard that Chabad was opening this new school, Beis Rivka. Today has 2,500 girls. And her parents said, oh great, there's a new school in the neighborhood. We're going to enroll you next year for the school. You don't have to travel to Borough Park. It's a 20-minute bus ride. And the girl says, no, I don't want to go. I want to go where my sisters are. My sisters were going all to this Beis Yaakov. I don't want to go to a new school where there's going to be 15 kids. Why would I do that? And the father said, let's write to the Rebbe. And she wrote to the Rebbe. And in her letter she wrote to the Rebbe, she says, listen, I don't want to be a guinea pig. I don't want to start a new school. I want to go where everyone else is going. And the Rebbe returned her letter, and all he did was cross out two words, guinea pig, and instead he wrote pioneer. You want to be a trailblazer? You want to be a pioneer? You want to be a Jew who recognizes that Baruch HaGever Asher Yiftach Ba'Hashem V'Hoya Hashem Yiftach. Blessed is the Jew, blessed is the human, the man, the woman who puts their trust in God, and God becomes their rock, and God becomes the one whose their trust is in. We don't rely on anyone. We're pioneers, we're trailblazers. We take it into our own hands to rebuild the world. And Hashem should give each and one of us the strength to recognize our inherent gift and power that God gives us to be a trailblazer, to be a pioneer, to be a revolutionary, to change the world for good, to be a beacon of light, as it says, V'atem tiyu li mamleches kohen v'goy kodesh, that we have to be a light upon the nations. We have to lead. You don't lead by looking backwards, you lead by looking forwards. You don't lead by relying on others, you lead by paving the way for others. And that's the story of Israel. That's the story, the miracle of the Jewish people for generations. May Hashem protect us and give us the strength to see that blessing and that vision and march forward in making this world a better place. L'sakin olam b'malchus shin dalad yud, to make this world a place that God intended it to be and gave us the mandate to make. God bless you. Have a Shabbat Shalom. See you tonight, 6:10, or tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. if you join us outdoors in our tent. And a beautiful Kiddush. Shabbat Shalom.